Have you ever wondered what darkness truly means when it walks among us, in flesh, in spirit, and in stories we dare not forget? Today's guest is Clare Castleberry, an author whose work is soaked in the Gothic atmosphere of Louisiana, charged with raw feminine power and shadowed by folklore's most dangerous monsters. Her fiction pulls you into worlds where beauty and brutality collide, and her own journey dances between paranormal experience, survival, and the secrets that thrive in Southern shadows. This is the Dark Mind Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider supporting it by subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive daily blog posts and weekly book and film reviews. Head over to patreon.com/The Dark Mind Podcast and become a citizen of the darkness. You can also support the show for free by subscribing to my YouTube channel. Your support helps keep the dark conversation alive. So without further ado, I give you Clare Castleberry. Clare, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on this 28th day of September 2025. I recently discovered both of your latest books by Amazon recommendation and was immediately drawn in by the synopsis for Lisette and even more so by Journeys Through Fear, especially after having listened to your interview on another podcast about being an experiencer. I checked out Lisette, and as always, you wove a story rich with the Gothic atmosphere of Louisiana. It's layered with dark feminine energy and drenched in moments of unpredictable and often outright savage violence. While this intense violence isn't characteristic of all your work, when it emerges, it's unforgettable. I really enjoyed the read, and I truly appreciate you sharing it with us on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. That means the world to me.
Well, kind of a brief synopsis, Lisette tells the story of a woman, once a stripper, who falls for a man named Austin. Seduced into a controlling and abusive relationship, she attempts to free herself through witchcraft, only for her spell to backfire, plunging her into a nightmarish codependency with a now transformed Austin as a, and I hope I'm saying this right, a loup-garou?
Oh my God, you nailed it.
Sweet. So to satisfy his ravenous hunger, Lisette uses her phone sex line to entice victims to her home. But then a cop, already smitten with Lisette, begins to connect her presence to a string of mysterious local disappearances, and that's where the story really takes off. So Lisette unfolds in 1990s New Orleans, a city known for its mystery and spirit. Did you aim to capture a specific, quote, shadow or mood of New Orleans that often goes unnoticed in most portrayals?
You know, I think most authors who are writing from a Southern Gothic angle capture this really well. And even if you watch things that are set in Louisiana, like True Detective Season 1, I think what I aim to do is just follow in other talented writers and directors' footsteps by capturing kind of a juxtaposition between the Madonna and the horror aspects of New Orleans, or the rich hoity-toity mansions along St. Charles Avenue butted up against bad neighborhoods where anything can happen. And so those are some of the qualities that I try to capture in my work. I don't really show the light without the dark, and I don't really like to show the dark without a little bit of light. So oftentimes, there may be like a murder or something, but a block down, someone's having a good time on Bourbon Street. So I like to highlight both of those things because I think that both the light and dark aspects are just so freaking obvious when you go down there. And especially if you're a creative person and you'll go down there, you'll definitely pick it up.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm embarrassed to admit this or if it's just so bizarre that there's no reason to be embarrassed. I live in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to New Orleans.
Oh God.
I've been to where do you go for the boats to gamble? Lake Charles, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the places.
Numerous times, but never been to New Orleans.
I feel like a lot of places in the South have like that weird dichotomy of, the beauty and the kind of decay and, the rich history that's kind of seeped in this antebellum vibe, but also, hauntings by a lot of really angry dead people. So it's not just New Orleans, it's the entirety of the South.
What kind of, I don't think they just straight up call them witchcraft shops. Do they call them like spiritual apothecaries or, occult shops like that?
I mean, it depends on where you go. Some places are like spiritual bookstore and some places are like, here's where you go to worship the devil,
Oh, okay.
It's very, I mean, I think if you kind of radiate out a little bit from New Orleans, people are a little bit more careful. But what I like about New Orleans is that it just like slaps on the slutty red lipstick and sticks its tits out and is like, here I am. If you don't like it, you can go to mass on Sunday and purge yourself or something. So yeah, it's a really interesting vibe there.
Yeah, there was a real, I don't know if it was famous, but locally famous store in one of the lower income areas of Houston called Stanley Drug Company, which, kind of sounds a little weird. Like, what exactly is it? But you go there and I feel like a lot of the people that worked there and went there practiced Santeria because there was a lot of Catholicism involved.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
But there was a room where you could pay them to cast spells for you.
Oh, I would totally do that.
Yeah. I never did it, but I went there for, just occult books that you couldn't find in regular bookstores. And they had all kinds of cool incense and stuff like that. So,
yeah, my family was a little bit into that. We had kind of like I guess they call it hoodoo technically, but they kind of borrowed from a lot of different beliefs. And it was interesting. I think the name of the book is Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward, where the characters are from Mississippi, but they're, talking about God and things like that, but also carrying around gree bags for good luck. So that was really kind of enlightening to read. Another kind of Southern Gothic book like that where they mention kind of a blending of spiritual ideals. So I thought that was really cool.
What was the name of the book?
I think it's Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward.
Oh, I guess I did have the right one. Focuses on a family in the fictional town of Bois Sauvage, I guess?
Yeah, Bois Sauvage.
Mississippi. The novel received overwhelmingly positive reviews and was named the New York Times as one of the 10 best books of 2017. Interesting.
Yeah, I definitely recommend her work if you like Southern Gothic stuff. Okay. She's kind of queen of that right now.
Nice. Well, circling back to the book and the loup-garou mythology, it is actually pretty central to the story, but reimagined in your novel. What emotional or existential truths about humanity do you think folk monsters like the loup-garou reveal?
I think that if you want to dance close to the devil, you just have to be really careful. And you kind of have to take it upon yourself to educate yourself about what some of these dabblings into deep spirituality can bring and what messages and symbols are behind them. Because if you take a look at the book, I think that Lisette's spell backfires. I don't want to give the ending away, but I think that's the takeaway message. Actually, it kind of came from something that my uncle used to tell me. He was a real, like, kind of Creole badass who was always out in his garden and things like that. And I used to say things like, well, I'm not going to go to school today. I'm just going to go hang out in the woods and then no one will ever find me. And he was like, you better be careful because the Lougarou is going to get you if you do that. So I guess I kind of related it to present day. Like if you're going to get into anything naughty, you have to kind of watch your back and do your research. So I think that's where it stems from me and my own personal mythology.
Okay. So the Loup-garou, is that kind of like a, not necessarily a legend. I mean, I guess people consider it to be real, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, to some degree, like there have been sightings, I think, all over Louisiana. And I think it's interesting. It's kind of up near I guess they call it like the Mississippi Delta, where it's spotted a lot. And that's a lot of where my family is actually from, is like the Bogachita area and up kind of near the Mississippi border. So yeah, it's a really prominent thing. It was actually really funny because my dad asked me, he was like, what, the Loup-garou is a werewolf, right? I kind of remember that. And I was like, oh yeah, I have a story to tell you about Uncle and the stuff that he used to tell me when I was a kid.
The psychologically damaging threats and stories like, don't do this. Or, yeah, do you think the monsters like that, like the chupacabra, they're kind of expressions of the same thing across cultures, or do you think these are like separate things?
That's a great question. I want to say it's just different expressions of the same type of thing, and that they're interpreted slightly differently depending on the culture. But I mean, I honestly think the Loup-garou is just like a shapeshifter of some kind. If you study any kind of distant culture, they typically will have some kind of lore about some kind of shape-shifting entity, which is kind of fascinating if you think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure anybody that's listened to the podcast is sick of me bringing up Jung, but you know, the archetype.
I don't get sick of you.
Well, you know, the collective unconscious where the archetypes are, you know, they kind of all exist. I typed in Loup-garou and it auto-corrected Lou Gehrig. I was like, why am I seeing baseball instead of, let's see.
It should know you by now.
Garou? There it is. Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, it should know me, by God. Let's see what we got here.
It's a lot of like really buff werewolves.
Yeah. Are you not going to expand for me? You're kind of weak. Let's see. That's it. There we go. Thank you.
He's buff.
Yeah, he is. But wasn't Austin described as being buff?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, is that part of the legend? Like,
I don't know. I guess
like Loup-garou has great abs.
I guess they have to be. It's kind of hot, actually. I guess they have to be pretty in shape for what they do, right?
They're predators, yeah. I mean, you know, I'm sure tearing somebody limb from limb will give you some well-defined obliques, you know.
Right, exactly. Stack up those deltoids, you know.
Mm-hmm. So, circling back to the book, how much of Lisette's journey is about power and how much is about survival in a world that constantly threatens the, quote, other?
I think it's kind of about both. I think that obviously she's in a very codependent relationship with Austin. And I think a lot of the story is her realizing that codependency and trying to kind of break out of it. But if you recall, the story starts out, she has like a burn on her face. So I think that it's a story about power and otherness, kind of working together in the background simultaneously. She's constantly kind of struggling with this notion of beauty and kind of coming into herself and accepting this, I guess, like deformity that she has due to Austen's abuse. So her coming into a Loup-Garou herself is kind of like an establishment of power as well, because as a monster, you can really do anything you want. I mean, of course, like beauty doesn't really matter. What matters is whether or not you can rip someone to shreds and eat them for nourishment and scare the pants off of someone if you need to. So I actually think it's about those two things simultaneously.
Okay. Well, in many ways, the supernatural in Lisette acts as a metaphor for urges society refuses to acknowledge. What taboos were you most interested in reframing or confronting in this novel?
I think that, for one, it can be really difficult to write about an abusive relationship without it seeming too violent or over the top. So I wanted to kind of do that in a way that showed her as a victim and also kind of as a codependent person that needed to work through a lot of issues as well. And I think also the taboo of sex work is actually like really prominent in there as well. And that's something that I've kind of dabbled in myself. Really, like frontline and center has always been writing. Like every job that I've ever had has been to forward my writing in some kind of way or provide income so that I was able to write. But I still think even today, sex work is stigmatized. And I think, a lot of people see, oh, a girl, I don't have OnlyFans, but like, oh, this girl has OnlyFans, she must be just like a total waste of space or something like that. But really, like, you never know why someone is doing the job that they're doing. It might be to, provide for a child. It might be, someone has to get out of a financial hole or they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, it might be to feed their boyfriend succulent female flesh. you never really know. So I think I wanted to kind of like destigmatize sex work a little bit as well along the way.
When you said it's difficult to write about abuse without being violent or over the top, why? What do you mean by that?
I think that, typically a lot of times in horror, you see like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think something like that, a slasher film typically, or if you think back to the 80s where there were movies about just women dying or something like that, where it was just kind of like not as much of a plot-centric story and more about just like blood and guts and things like that. That's obviously stemming from violence and abuse of an obscene kind. But I kind of wanted to get more into the emotional and psychological aspects of abuse with Lisette. I mean, I know that it's really essentially a shapeshifter Loup-Garou story, but a lot of my things are kind of revenge centric as well. And this one wasn't as much, but I think it was more of a character arc that she needed to kind of experience these things in order to work her way out of this abusive relationship with Austen. It doesn't necessarily have like a happy ending per se, but it is kind of like a different ending where she gets away from Austen. So I think that it's hard to do because it's such an emotionally heavy topic for a lot of people. I mean, I've been in relationships like that myself. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to write from that place. It's just very difficult to do without going too far. I think, and upsetting the reader. But like I said, I think that she needed some kind of character arc where she realized that this was, an abusive relationship that she somehow needed to wiggle her way out of.
And it's, as you said, it's kind of a Lugaroo story, but it is kind of interesting how you have created a genuine codependent relationship. Like, listeners at home, I'm not saying this tongue in cheek. This is literally like a very specific example of a codependent relationship.
Yeah.
It just happens to be, well, I don't know if I explained it, would that be a spoiler?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it happens to be that he is dependent on her to attract and lure people for him to eat. If he was to just go out loose on him by himself and do it, he would eventually, probably pretty quickly get caught, and the entire town would be out with pitchforks and torches looking for him. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I think it's kind of like an allegory in a way for how those relationships can kind of be. So I think what happens is you might come to a point where you realize, wow, this person is really, really toxic. And a lot of times you can't just break free just like that. You have to have kind of a plan to work through, because I think like deep down, a lot of people know if I just up and leave, this motherfucker is going to follow me and eat me or something like that. So I think that her codependency and the way that she drags out this relationship by continuing to bring him women, I think is very typical of what you see in codependent abusive relationships. I mean, think about Carla Homolka and Paul Bernard. They were a serial killer duo in Canada. Have you ever heard of them before? It's a really, really, really messed up case. And I studied it for years thinking like, how did these people get in this situation? She was literally cruising around with him, helping him pick up teenage victims. And I think people would probably like look at that case and be like, what the fuck? I mean, she's obviously just as guilty as he is. But I mean, like, how do people get in these situations? I think there's a lot of gaslighting, a lot of manipulation, and a lot of abuse that we kind of have to take into account when it comes to cases like that. Yeah, look it up. That's the motherfucker right there.
Which one? Or
that
like
dude, he looks like
this guy?
No, keep going over to the left, the far left. The guy with the evil stare. Yeah, that guy in the car.
This guy.
That guy.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
What time period was this?
It might have been the late 80s, early 90s or something. It's a disgusting case, but it's fascinating in a way because just of his hold over her, and I think she was just equally like a fucked up person. Like I think that Lisette is pretty messed up as a person. She's not like totally innocent in this whole story.
Yeah.
So I drew a little bit of inspiration from this couple. Crazy pants. Wait till you read about it. It's crazy.
I saw a serial. Well, you know what's funny? You can't say the R word even if you set it to 18 and above on YouTube. So I guess I better not say.
Okay.
He was a serial.
Yes.
That
one of those nasties.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Well, in the story, in building the supernatural rules of this world, how did you decide what to leave unexplained?
That's kind of hard to answer because I play it by ear a little bit. I think if I had an example of something that was left unsaid, it might be like a little bit easier. But what I try to do in everything that I write, I try to organize it so that at the end of each chapter, there's like a little bit of a cliffhanger. And then I start each chapter trying to figure out how much I want to reveal. So I'll try to start out each chapter with like a little bit of excitement, but I think that I leave a lot of things up to the imagination of the reader to keep them going so that they finish the story. And I like that. I don't have like a ton of readers or anything like that, but I think that a lot of people who read my stuff are smart enough. They're able to kind of like pick up on the symbology and the message without being told, here's the message, I'm going to give it to you on a silver platter. So that's something I kind of strive to maintain as far as consistency in my writing.
Was there a particular scene while writing Lisette where the emotional logic of a character surprised you or changed your original plans?
Yeah, I think that once I got to the point of where she started killing or bringing in female victims for Austen, I struggled with that because it was like Austen was kind of winning right there in the middle of the story, saying, well, this is my preference. Although he could totally sustain himself off of eating men if he really wanted to. He had a preference. And I really, really struggled. Like, do I want to let Lisette do this? But I think at that point, she was so manipulated and so worn down from his abuse that she would have just done anything to just like shut him up. Of course, things progress from there and the story changes quite a bit. But yeah, I really struggled with that. I hated Austen. I was ready.
Well, he's kind of a dick, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was kind of ready for him to die early on, but I was like, I gotta keep forging forward and make his death more, pronounced or something like that. So yeah, I really struggled with that in the beginning. It was hard for me. But I mean, of course you need kind of a character art and plot twists and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
That's what kept me going.
Well, as much gaslighting and psychological manipulation was involved in the storyline, was his all of a sudden preference for female victims sort of like a stab at her to give her some sort of jealousy? Because didn't the book describe her feeling some sort of uncomfortable stirrings in her womb when he would say that?
Of course it was. It was really, I think that was just kind of a demonstration of how caged he felt. So he was reaching out with that prong just to stab at her in order to entertain himself. Which, if you've been in an emotionally toxic relationship, people do that.
Oh, God.
It's, I mean, it's just like pathetic.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty true to life. So went ahead and threw that in there. I didn't always want to, but that's just how he is as a character. So it fit.
Gotcha. Well, if Lisette could speak directly to her readers, what do you think she'd be proudest to admit, and what might she still refuse to confess?
I think that she would probably make peace with the fact that she gets to go on in the story and kind of survive in her own way, even though she's transformed into something else entirely. It gives her a sense of power, that kind of power that she had been looking for her whole life. And I think she would probably not want anyone to know that she was just so weighed down by Austen. And yet she played this kind of dominant feminist character on her phone lines where, she was in complete control and she had power through her voice that was so strong that she was able to lure anyone that she wanted. So I think that was kind of a fun dichotomy to play around with, that she found just a little bit of power in her own voice, but was just like so weighed down by this one person. I mean, it has to be kind of traumatic and overwhelming and just repressive. Something I can kind of relate to.
Well, if you had to choose one image or recurring motif that encapsulates the psychic and emotional tension of Lisette, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think that in a way, it may be controversial to kind of say this, but whether we want to or not, or whether we kind of unwillingly do it or not, I think that we attract certain people in our lives to give us a lesson. I think some people learn the lesson quickly. And if a person who comes into your life turns out to be toxic, I think that, a lot of mature people have the wherewithal to take the message in, understand it, and then move on. But I think that in Lisette's case, she probably could have handled this a little bit differently. So I think one of the takeaway messages in this novella is don't ignore those early red flags or they'll come back to bite you in the ass. That's a big, big part of it. And I think another message, of course, is, when you play with fire, you might get burned unless you have the knowledge to step back from the fire, because there's kind of an undercurrent of magic in the book as well that she plays with without fully understanding how it's going to backfire. And if she'd listened to that shopkeeper, it might have been a totally different outcome. So that's another message. Just always listen to those occult shopkeepers. And if they tell you something, take it in. Don't take it for granted. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of Aleister Crowley. He loved to not push the boundaries. He loved to give them the finger.
Yeah.
And I remember, I forget which, he was doing some sort of ritual where you're summoning something really fucked up. And you're supposed to stay inside this circle. I don't know if it's just drawn with chalk or salt or something like that. But he just stepped right outside of it. And I think it was from then on, it's when he started hearing a demon. Because if you follow the progression of his life, it's pretty intense. So it doesn't end well. So spoiler alert, folks.
Yeah, be careful with that stuff. It doesn't hurt to read as much as you possibly can and maybe talk to other people. Actually, there's a house up here in New Hampshire where Aleister Crowley stayed for a while. I can't remember the name of the town, but it's about an hour north of where I am. It has very strange energy. Like you go up there and you're like, oh, that's the house. I don't even need to check against the photos to know that was, it's really strange. He was just I don't know, not always a good dude.
Do you remember Anton LaVey?
Yeah.
You remember the Black House?
Oh, yeah.
Not only does the house not exist anymore, but the address doesn't either.
That does not surprise me.
It jumps numbers. It's like some sort of I don't know, condos or something like that. But I think it was like 2114 California Street. And 2114 does not exist anymore.
It seems like I tried to ride by there when I lived outside of San Francisco and I couldn't find it. But that doesn't surprise me. I think that, and that's I think another lesson. If you screw around with stuff too much that you're not really sure about, it can just leave like heavy energy. I think that people kind of start to play around with stuff like that because of ego or narcissism or something like that. I don't really know. So, yeah, be careful. It can come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah, because here, it was bizarre because it was wedged right between these kind of mundane looking, and see, you can tell from here, this was later when it was just falling apart and they wanted to get rid of it, not only because of the reputation it had, but it was an eyesore, or it was becoming an eyesore. Yeah. But good God, Sammy Davis Jr., some of the movers and shakers back in the 60s were coming to this house.
I know. They were looking for, I guess, a sense of power. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for when they dabble in things like that. I've read a lot of Anton LaVey's books, and I think that there's some value in some of that stuff, but he had some issues.
Yeah, I think he often got accused of being a con man, and I'm not saying he didn't believe in what he was doing, but I think there was a little bit of con involved in that.
For sure. I'm sure he was like, sure, I can tell you the secrets of power. Give me some cash. I don't know. Who knows?
I
Give
think
me your soul.
that's the main reason him and his associate, what was his name? Aquino,
Ah,
split up because he wanted to start selling the degrees, which normally you had to earn through proving your magical prowess.
yeah. That's some Donald Trump level
Yeah.
stuff going on there.
I'm not going to say anything bad because I'll start having demons visit me at night.
Or you just make friends with them. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Oh, so I have not read this, but I have listened to a podcast you were on. I guess it was quite a few years now, where you talked about your encounters with, I think, mantis entities, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that's what your book, Journeys Through Fear, and there's a tagline on that, Journeys Through Fear. What is it?
An experiencer manifesto.
An experiencer manifesto. And that details your own experiences with paranormal phenomena. So did writing about your personal encounters reshape your own understanding of them or solidify what you already believed?
You know what? I have learned actually kind of recently to just like get up every morning and ask myself, what are you wrong about?
Ah.
And that has been refreshing because I think I spent most of my life, especially after these weird encounters, trying to gain as much information as I possibly could about things like that. And at the end of all of it, I got a master's degree in library science. And, the sole reason I became a librarian is just to have access to that information without paying like overdue fees or anything like that. So I'm kind of like at the end of that rope, and I still don't know the answers to these kinds of things. Like if it's like hallucinating or if, people are going out of body and experiencing these things, or if they're actual physical encounters, like I don't really know. So the best I can say at this point is my beliefs are flexible.
Hmm. Well, I mean, regardless of the ontological facts about the experiences, what qualities most troubled or fascinated you, not as a writer, but as a person, trying to make sense of your own existence?
So I had this experience when I was like 5, going on 6. And the experience itself, I don't know if I was like hallucinating or if I was having like a really deep dream, but what it felt like was an experience that was beyond real. Like we're sitting here talking right now and I can see you on the screen and it's a very real experience. This experience that I had where I feel like I might have been abducted was like realer than real. Like the sensations underneath my feet were enhanced in a way. I don't know if that really makes sense. And I also feel like at some point there was something inserted into my foot. And it's funny, like I'm talking about this experience now and I have like this dull, it's not an ache, but it's just like a sensation where it is. So I think those two things combined have always thrown me off. Like I think about it every single freaking day, just how bizarre it was and what did it mean. And if it was a real experience, like why would they feel the need to put something in my foot? Why was it my foot? What the hell is it? Is it actually there? It is there because, if I run my finger across it, I can feel like there's some kind of thing in my foot. What I'd really like to do and what I'm kind of scared to do is get like a scan or something and see what's in there and maybe find out what it is. But I don't know if it's like supposed to be there. Did they put it there to like keep me alive? I mean, what the fuck? I don't know.
Well, how do you know if you can get in an MRI or not?
I have no idea.
What if it's metal?
It might be. I don't really know. I've heard of a lot of people who have had similar experiences, who've had scans or they've had them removed and they turned out to be like metal or something that they, had a hard time identifying. So, like, we get into that kind of stuff, and I start to get kind of like nervous because I don't know what does it mean if an alien freaking abducts you and puts an implant. What, are they listening right now? I mean, what the fuck? It's really strange. Like, the more you think about it, the more it kind of like makes me want to go get another beer. You know what I
mean? Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's the government.
I don't know. It might be. I mean, nothing would surprise me at this point.
Yeah. Did you ever read about Operation Midnight Climax?
No.
They were. It was kind of tied to MK Ultra. They were. They had a brothel basically.
What?
And there was a, what do you call that, where you can see in but they can't see out, like an observation?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that, like a mirror where scientists could see into the room, but nobody could see. It was a mirror that reflected. And the prostitutes were dosing these guys, giving them LSD-laced drinks.
Oh my God.
And then kind of just keeping them there and observing them and like just completely non-consensual, non-informed, like just. So Midnight Climax was a catchy name. I'd like to meet that guy that came up with that.
I just wrote it down. Just the title is very intriguing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember. I think it was the podcast I listened to. You guys were talking about how it was a real struggle for you to maintain a, quote, normal life alongside having these experiences. Do you feel integrated at all or just completely split, like still just at odds with, what exactly they are or what exactly to do with the knowledge?
That's a good question. I think it wasn't really until recently I had the opportunity. I've been meditating for years, not necessarily to get answers to things, but to just gain, I guess, like peace and calmness in my life and as a way to kind of quell anxiety. And it wasn't really until I went to the Monroe Institute and did Gateway that I just kind of accepted that sometimes this just happens to people. I had been having a lot of like out of body experiences since childhood, and they seemed to be just like spontaneous, like it would just happen, and it didn't really feel like I had a lot of control over them. And then I started to get a little bit more control over them in my late 30s when I took meditation super seriously. And then I went to the Monroe Institute and I kind of finally felt at peace with what I was experiencing. Because I had a lot of like weird psychic stuff that would happen that would come true, and a lot of strange deja vu events, a lot of dreams that would come true as well. Just a lot of like really strange things. And it wasn't really until I went to the Monroe Institute and met other people that I just was like, okay, it's fine. I'll just accept it. I've made peace with the fact that I don't know some things. So I'm finally like at a point in my life where I can say, I don't know what that means. And I'm perfectly comfortable with that now, saying I don't know. So that was kind of revolutionary for me, because I think at some point I was just like, actually, I think you could be greedy for knowledge. And I think I was like at a point in my life where I needed to know everything and just be like a little smart ass know-it-all. And I'm past that now.
Yeah, I forget which guest I was talking to. We were talking about how would you want never knowing the truth or having all truth all at once?
Oh, God. Years ago, I would have said all truth all at once, but now I'm like, oh, hell no. I finally understand what ignorance is bliss
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, Peter Shosted Hughes, he's a philosopher of mind that does most of his work with the assistance of psilocybin mushrooms.
Ah, very cool.
And he did a lot of study on Nietzsche, and he said it's basically fact that Nietzsche experimented a lot with psychedelics. And the general consensus, for the most part, is that the reason he kind of just devolved into this childlike state where he had to be taken care of by his mother and sister was because of untreated syphilis. You know, it just apparently destroys your brain. But there's also, at least with Shosted Hughes, there's also this, you know what? I think he may have just gotten a little too close to the pulse of the universe. And it's just like, it's
Scared
like
the shit out of him. Yeah.
Feedback loop. Like he's just kind of stuck. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. I think if you get too close to it, it starts to get kind of creepy. And then you fall down all these rabbit holes, right? You know, like reptilian aliens and all sorts of crazy shit. I mean, that might be true. Who knows? Like at this point, I'm willing to.
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of, you know, way back in the day, I'd be like, oh, that's bullshit conspiracy theory. And then we're like, wait, Epstein Island, what? What did she say?
I know. Yeah, that used to be a total conspiracy, and now we're kind of starting to get glimpses into things like that. I mean, I'll stop myself before I get into too big of a rabbit hole because I just don't feel like I have I wish I had enough time for those kinds of things, but if you kind of stop and think about it and pull away for a second, it's interesting to think about now, why would this conspiracy start in the first place? Is it just like a 4chan bullshit loop, or is there any kind of like truth to things like this?
Or sometimes you notice when this stuff's going on, you lose track of what the government's doing. And it's like these conspiracies are like, hey, look over here. Look over here.
Yeah. Shiny object.
Yeah.
Shiny
car
object.
keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. So true.
Well, was there ever a moment during the writing of Journeys Through Fear when you felt that a boundary, whether that be psychic or emotional, had been breached?
So in what way? Like with
did you feel
experiences that they were too much?
Well, no, when you were writing it, like maybe something that you didn't want to really elaborate on as much as you did, or something that you weren't going to share at all. And then when you did and it was out there, you're like, oh God, I feel like I should have, like, my personal boundary, you know, I breached my own personal boundary, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I think about, every day I'm like, I'm going to remove that book. I shouldn't have said all of that. I probably, you know, come across as crazy or something. But then every once in a while, someone will reach out to me and say, thank you for writing about that because I had a paranormal experience and I can't explain it. And I feel like, you know, that when I share my experiences, it helps people to a degree. So I get just about to the point where I think maybe I have schizophrenia and maybe I should take all that shit down. It's just about at that point someone will reach out and thank me for doing the interview with Stuart Davis for Aliens and Artists, or
that's who it was.
Yeah. Or thank me for writing about it on my Substack or something like that. So that was the sole motivation. I didn't have I don't want to get rich off of that book, or I didn't set out to do the interview to get rich and famous or anything like that. It was solely to help people who have had strange experiences that they are experiencing ontological shock from. So I just wanted to help people feel like they weren't alone in this. That was my only motivation for doing that. And it seems to be holding up okay. If I ever get overwhelmed with that feeling that it's just too much, I'll just wipe it from the internet.
Gotcha. Well, you've explored horror, erotica, and the book we've just been talking about, nonfiction. So how do you decide which form a particular psychic or philosophical question demands? I mean, obviously, Journeys Through Fear, that makes total sense. But when it comes down to Southern Gothic, transgressive, what else could we say? Speculative fiction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like feminist erotic horror or something. Chopping off dicks or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's all over a lot of like what I write, honestly, is like social commentary. So I'll pay attention to what's happening in culture and the things that people are kind of talking about. And it's almost like a journalist thing. I'll look at it through a creative lens and then produce something that, I feel like has at least like some value for what people are talking about. So I think like Journeys Through Fear, if you, pay attention to, I don't really listen to like a lot of podcasts or anything like that, but if you just pay attention to the number of podcasts on non-human intelligence contact, it seems to be kind of increasing a little bit. Dark feminine energy was just kind of like a response to the current gender war climate that we seem to be experiencing and why women choose the bear over the guy in the woods. Or
the Lugaroo.
yeah, why they choose the Lugaroo. So for me, it's really just like a lot of cultural commentary, and then the genre doesn't really matter all that much, whether it's nonfiction or erotic, or I just kind of like do what I feel. And I don't want to be constrained to one single thing, but I guess there is kind of a theme of Southern Gothic, sexy, paranormal stuff. There you go. That's my genre.
Sweet. And speaking of sexy and erotic, I know the topic probably, maybe not, I don't know, but at the time really irritated you, so I will not belabor it. But did you find a platform for your, what did you call it, audio erotica?
No, I mean, not really. I did try to do like audio only 18 and over sites, but people want you to get naked on those, so I just kind of like abandoned that. Really, like the best thing I find to do with content like that is just like put it up on Amazon, see if Amazon takes it down, and then there's like Findaway Voices, and of course other places where people get audiobooks for things like that. So that seems to be like a better platform. I know of one dominatrix in particular, and she has an OnlyFans that's just 100% audio, but she's been doing that job since like
she's
the early 90s. Yeah. And I think people just like, I don't have like the time or resources to just do audio only. I have to kind of blend it with other author type things to make it work for me. So,
I just remember you saying you had like a backlog of stuff that you could put up, but just...
I don't really know. If anyone out there knows of a platform for that kind of stuff, I would love to hear about it. But now I just have like all these files. I'm like, what do I do with all of this stuff? Yeah. So I don't know. I'll figure it out one of these days. It's aggravating because I can't figure out where to put them.
I know. That's why I was hesitant to bring it up. I was just going to be... I hope she isn't like, no, I fucking haven't.
They'll I don't know, maybe if I fall over dead or something, people will find this weird treasure trove of erotic story. Maybe, I don't know, sell them to the family estate or something. Now that would be fun and weird, right?
Oh yeah, the Castleberry Files. Well, in both your horror fiction and your nonfiction, there's an undercurrent of control versus surrender. How does this dynamic play out in your own life philosophy?
Great question. See, you always ask very good, informed questions that no one else asks. So I think this goes back to a little bit what we were talking about. about why I got into the field that I got into. I was kind of greedy for information. And I kind of feel like growing up at times, there were a lot of times in my life where I struggled for control. And even into early adulthood, I would just, date these guys and they would be like, I don't feel comfortable with the stuff you're writing. I'd be like, okay. And I'd stop for a little while and then start again and do it secretly and hoard notebooks and then send stuff out to editors without them knowing or anything. And then, magically.
What wouldn't they be comfortable with? Like what
anything,
kind of...
I think so. Just like some people are just like that, they want to have 100% control over you and the way that you dress and what you do for a career and all of that stuff. So I struggled with it. And I think that I wrote a lot of the things that I wrote, like femdom stuff, as a way to kind of feel like I had some control in my life. And I'm just now getting to a point where I'm accepting surrender. It's a little bit easier than trying to run around controlling every aspect of my life. Like, I'm very proud of myself. I went on a trip recently and I was like, I'm not going to make a list. I'm just going to fly off the seat of my pants and pack my bag and see what happens. And if I forget something, it's going to be totally fine. And guess what it was?
Oh, what did you forget?
Okay. I didn't forget anything.
So
it was totally, totally fine. I was actually like kind of overpacked. So it's little things like that. I'm still learning that it's okay to, not have like a very rigid life plan or a rigid daily schedule or be bound by all of these like stupid lists and, all these little things that I was doing to maintain control over my life or my schedule and my career, relationships. I'm kind of learning to just like give in a little bit and go with the flow, which has been hard. But I think I'm getting a little bit better at it.
Well, kind of a more use your imagination question. If you could design your own haunted location, what sort of entity or memory would inhabit it and what would it want? I'm hoping you'll write a book from this and then I'll be in the dedication. No.
I was recently at StokerCon and we did a panel on sex and monsters, and a fellow author who's fantastic, Caitlin Ladd.
Oh, yeah, I've had her on the show.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. She was like the perfect moderator. Her first question was, which monster would you fuck?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I chose, Tim Curry from Legend. Oh, you gotta Google Tim Curry from Legend. He's the devil in the movie with Tom Cruise. So I think that I would pick maybe a demon like Tim Curry from Legend, haunting an old school New Orleans home on St. Charles Avenue, because if I get too freaked out, I can just run out into traffic and stop somebody or jump on the streetcar or something like that. But it would be like an incubus demon. Yeah, there he is. He's sexy. Right?
Well, I can't get a... I didn't know that was Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is like we were talking about earlier. This is a monster with abs.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
He looks like he works out. And see, he
Hell has the most amazing gym. You have no idea.
Well, what else are you gonna do there? You gotta feed your ego, right?
Do you know how heavy the soul of an unbeliever is?
So it would be, I think, like an incubus type demon who wanted to get down and dirty, or okay, so I also like that movie. It was a book by Whitley Strieber, The Hunger. the female vampire lead in that movie is also pretty sexy, and she's with David Bowie. So like a vampire would do it for me too. I would totally run off with a vampire. Catherine, I can't remember her last name. She's a French actress, very beautiful. But if you watch that movie, there's a scene where Bauhaus is playing at the very beginning of the movie, and she's out with David Bowie at a goth club, and they're looking for their next victim as vampires. And I feel like I totally would, that would work on me in a haunted gothic club. Two beautiful people coming up to me and saying, "Come back to my vampire lair," where I'll do, yeah, it would totally work on me.
In American Horror Story?
Yeah.
I'm not, why am I seeing Susan Sarandon?
She's in that movie too.
Oh, okay. But she's not the vampire.
No, she's like the object of their desire.
Okay. Miriam Blaylock?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's her.
Yeah. So, family dynamics, both nurturing and traumatic, thread through your work. Are there family ghosts you think every writer has to make peace with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that might be kind of a common denominator in writers, is interesting family dynamics. Even if they're not central to your current life, there's probably some family lore. And generational trauma, maybe, that you're always trying to square as a writer. I know that's the case in my personal life, too. Not everything has always been, like, 100% hunky-dory. I've lived a very privileged and lucky life, for the most part. I will say that. But there were kind of things that I had to deal with early on first, before I got the privilege and the luck. And I've kind of spent my life squaring those things away in my writing. But it's really, really cathartic to do that, though. And I think a lot of other writers will probably agree with that you can put a lot of demons to bed, like in a non-sexual way. Kind
not
of
like Tim Curry.
No, not like Tim Curry. You can put a lot of things to rest that way by writing them out and kind of creating your own little resolutions, if you so choose to do so. And I think that can be very healing from a writer standpoint and a creative standpoint, because even if you weren't able to address those things early on in a writing, you can kind of create any kind of backstory or ending that you want to. And I think that's good for your heart space.
Gotcha. Yeah. So would you agree with the adage that there's no such thing as a functional family?
Oh, yeah, I think, and I think that's important to talk about, because I think that, if you're, let's say, growing up in the South, you have a traditional fundamentalist family who wants to actually appear perfect, and you, as the child, feel like an other. You may be gay, or your brain doesn't work the rest of the way like the rest of your families, or, you listen to different music, or you just feel different in any way. I think it's important to know that not every family is perfect. And I think that that's part of the reason that I write from a place where dysfunctional families are prominent, because I want younger readers to see that it's normal. You can work through it. You can become a whole person whenever you choose to do so. And sometimes it might involve getting away from your family. And that's totally normal. The Christian fundamentalists married, happy, go lucky 2.5 kids with the picket fence and the happy barking dog is mostly for TV. It doesn't always work out that way. And I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I always think of that movie Blue Velvet when I think about white picket fences. What kind of crazy shit's going on?
Exactly. It's always something. That's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. Well, what's a psychological blind spot you think the horror genre needs to confront more directly?
That's a great question. We talked about this a little bit at StokerCon as well. I can't remember the name of the author. Oh, it's Edward Lorne, south of here. I think that, especially like Southern Gothic works, I think I'd like to see a lot more bold writing about wealth disparity, because we're seeing a lot of that right now with the current political and social climate. I think that there are some people who kind of want to read about, happy romance type stuff to get them out of that headspace where they have to worry all the time. But a lot of people want to read real shit. South of here was a really good example of how hard reality can hit in some of these pockets of the South. So I think that if you come from a place like that, or if you have experienced something like that in your life, it's important to read about those things. Because, I mean, I've been through points in my life where I was living out of my car. So, when you're in that situation, it can feel extremely lonely. Like, you can't talk to your friends because they're comfortably living in a house or something like that, and you don't feel comfortable approaching them for any kind of help. So I think it's important for fiction to speak on those bold, hard, raw truths that we're facing right now, and wealth disparity is kicking people's asses right now. I'd love to see more fiction about that.
Well, would you like to read a passage from Lisette? Give the listeners, viewers a little taste of why they need to buy the book?
Sure, why not? Okay. I don't think that we need too much setup for this. So Lisette is getting some wares from a little shop in the French Quarter. The shopkeeper watched from her perch, but from behind the counter as Lisette grabbed oils, candles, and herbs. Lisette pulled her hood tighter over her face before going up to the counter. "Still have your leash on your fur balls, sugar?" the nosy, grayed-haired woman asked while taking her time to ring up the items. Lisette nodded, avoiding the dark, wise eyes that bored into her soul. "Only let him eat gators and don't fuck him, no matter how many times he asks." Lisette looked at the floor. The old bat gave the same lecture every time Lisette came into the shop. "You got that?" Lisette looked up, made eye contact this time. "I got it. I know what I'm doing." "Sure you do, sugar," the old woman said, her tan face crinkling into a mocking grin. "You get tired of him and slay his ass, don't tell nobody for a full year, lest you become like him. Ain't nothing in here that'll help you with that. You heard?" Lisette looked down at her feet to hide her grimace. She nodded. She drove back to the shack, her foot punching the gas pedal all the way to the floor, her hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they hurt. How dare that damn shopkeeper doubt her? "I'm experienced," Lisette thought as she rounded a curve, the tires screeching on the asphalt. I never should have asked her about Austin in the first place. What did it matter? The shopkeeper would have figured it out anyway. Lisette visited once a month, right before the full moon, and always bought the same spell items. And the detective, what a strange experience. Perhaps he was testing her and he knew about Jack. But who the hell was Cherie? As she neared the swamps, she thought again about Jack's work truck. What if it bubbled up from the depths of the swamp? She entered the shack and dumped all the spell items on the table and went back to check on him. He moaned and stood up, stretching his lithe human form. Lisette backed away from the bars, but he was so quick he almost grabbed her by the hand. She could never, ever let that happen. "You smell so good," he said. His body was lean and wiry, almost like he could slip through those bars at any moment. His erection was obvious, and he dry-humped one of the bars and stroked it like it was his own member. "Come here," he told her. "No, Austin." She shook her head. Baby, you know no one else will think you're attractive. It's me and me only. She shook her head again and backed off another step. No, she said again. It gets passed around like an STD, and you bite. Just come here, he said through clenched teeth. He swiped at her through the bars, his fingernails almost grazing her breast. His expression was more sinister this time, his eyes dark, the fine lines around his brows drawn tighter into a scowl. There was that familiar pull. She lifted a foot to move towards him, but stopped herself, shook her head. The two of them together would cause a world of damage. The shopkeeper told her that much, and she believed it. And she could never let him out. Never. Yay, thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
I can see now why you narrate all your books, do you not?
Some of them, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I really enjoy it. Actually, to be completely honest with you, anytime I finish something, I'll read it out loud in like the most dramatic and, put like voices and everything. And it's just really to make sure I need to cut anything out that sounds stupid. It really works well, though. I recommend if you write, always read your stuff aloud. It'll really help you catch a lot of stuff.
Do you affect the accents and
oh
all
yeah,
that kind of-
like
okay.
I go crazy. Like if anybody stays at our house and they hear me reading, actually my husband walked in the other day. He was like, "What are you doing?"
I have multiple personalities. You didn't know? How long have we been married?
He should know that by now.
Well, Claire, as always, it has been a pleasure talking with you.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Absolutely. So as we bring the show to a close, is there anything you'd like to plug or let your readers know about?
Let's see. On November 1st, I'll be at the Louisiana Book Festival signing copies of Azalea House, Forbidden Gardens, Dark Feminine Energy, and Second Skin. I'll also have stickers there that I illustrated. I'll hopefully have another novella coming out pretty soon, and I should be at StokerCon in 2026 in Pittsburgh, I think. So those are the only for sure appearances, but I might have some more stuff coming up. So the best way to keep in touch with me is on Substack these days. So fembionic.substack.com. I always post where I'm going to be.
Nice. All right. Well, listeners at home, all links are in the description. And Claire, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for a new episode featuring the best and brightest authors and filmmakers of dark literature and film. So until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and as always, thank you for listening. See you next time.